Hello guys, welcome to another tutorial breakdown. You have requested I show you how to use After Effects to recreate some of these BBC news intros. BBC have several styles of news intros, and today I'm going to take you in a step-by-step breakdown on how to create this BBC Look East intro. And this is what I have used After Effects to recreate. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to put a footage into a placeholder. I'll also show you how to recreate the moving strip from left to right. And I'll also show you how they were able to create those moving text from right to left. And so many more tips I'm going to share with you in this tutorial. So hang on and let's get started. I am using After Effects 2025 for this tutorial. Any other version you have works the same. You will need a footage for this tutorial. You can use any footage at your disposal, or you can download the project file in the description. So now in After Effects, create a new composition. You can either go to Composition and New, or you Control N. So let's name this the intro. So the setting I'm going to use is 1920 by 1080 in the resolution, and I'm going to use 30 frames per second. So I'll change this to 10 seconds for the duration, and then hit OK. So the first thing I'm going to do is to import the video clip I'm going to use for this tutorial. If you want to import a video clip into After Effects, you can go to File, then Import and File. You can also hit Ctrl I for this purpose. So navigate to where you have your footage, select your clip, and then you hit OK. So drag and drop the footage into your timeline. Select the clip, Ctrl-Shift-C to pre-compose it. We're going to name this placeholder. Then move all attributes to the new composition, and then you hit OK. So this is because as we pre-compose this, we can always go back and change the clip. Now, Ctrl N to create a new composition. So we're going to call this Ribbon. So, but here we're going to increase resolution significantly higher than 1920 by 1080 pixels. So I'm going to change the height to 2500, and this is going to automatically set the width for me. That is because I have lock aspect ratio checked. So every other thing is going to be the same thing with the previous composition, and then you hit OK. So the first thing you're going to want to do here is to select the rectangle tool from the top toolbar, then click and drag across this composition. So we want this to sit just before the middle of the composition preview window. So to find out if we got that right, we need to enable the proportional grid. So now you can see that there are 6 blocks here. So this should stop before the third one. So 1, 2, 3. This is correct. So select the shape layer, Ctrl D on your keyboard to duplicate it, or you go to Edit and then select Duplicate. So now we're going to move this top duplicate up here. We also want it to start before the center square, somewhere here. Perfect. If you like, you can align this to center vertically. And also align the bottom one vertically, just to keep things straight. So the first thing you want to do is go back to the intro composition. So drag and drop this ribbon layer on top of your composition. You see, this is what you have, but do not worry, this is significantly bigger, but you'll find out why we make it bigger later when we start to tweak things around to make it look like the BBC look east intro. So now let's go back to this ribbon composition. Now we need to select the rectangle tool again from the top toolbar, and we're going to draw a very tiny strip of ribbon. Mind you, whatever color is selected here doesn't matter. We can always change that on the main composition using the fill effect. So we select this. This is okay. So what I'm going to do is to move the anchor point to the center by holding down Control key and double clicking on this anchor tool on the toolbar here. So now hit V on your keyboard to select this selection tool. Then you can also align this properly to the center. It doesn't matter, but I want everything to look clean and organized. Just realizing that everything look gray just like the interface. So because of YouTube compression, you might be finding it difficult to signify or differentiate what the interface is and what the shape layer is here. So to fix that for you, I'm going to change all this shape layer to red. So I'll select it, come to the toolbar top right here and select a fill color. I'm going to set it to red. That is very contrasting with the interface. So I'm going to select this both and also change the colors to red. Beautiful. This way you can see whatever we're doing. So like I said, the color you select here doesn't really matter. This is just for the purpose of visibility. So now I'm going to select the tiny strip right there. So now make a keyframe at 0. Then we're going to move to 4 seconds forward in time. No, let's come back to 0 first and pull this shape below this space. So once we have it below this space right here, then we'll move our time indicator to 4 seconds forward in time and then pull it upward like it goes through that space. So if you preview this, you see that strip going up. Beautiful. That is what we need. So what I'm going to do now is to select this layer, Ctrl D on the keyboard to duplicate it. Then I'm going to offset this now to about this point. So let me hit U so that I can see the keyframe. Beautiful. So somewhere here. So I need everything to end about 6 seconds. That is the last keyframe on the duplicate should stop at 6 seconds because the entire animation and intro is 6 seconds. So now if you scrub, you see that this goes and this goes. Beautiful. So the next thing I'm going to do now, we can duplicate this one here, or we create a new one. So I think we should create a new one. So go back to the top tool bar and then select the rectangle tool. So I'm going to create a little bit wider rectangle. Make sure no layer is selected, otherwise it is going to create the shape layer into an existing shape layer on the timeline. So make sure no layer is selected and then you go right there, create a little bit wider one, not too wide. We can pull in later to adjust this, so do not worry. So I will still repeat the same process to align it to center. So this is it. Make sure the shape layer is still selected. Then you still go back and pick the rectangle tool from the top. Then we're going to create a tiny strip of layer. Let's move this time indicator forward so that we cannot see the other ones. All right. So let's create a tiny strip on top. This is going to create this same shape layer inside the shape layer on the timeline. So we can now pull in to arrange this proper. So select it and move it very close to the other strip. You can reduce the width. Then we'll select the bottom one and also reduce the width a bit. We can increase this later if that is what you want. Beautiful. So we're going to select this. We're going to go to fit this to screen. Now select this come to 0, hit P on the keyboard again to reveal the keyframe for the position, to reveal the position property, I mean to say. Then you set a keyframe for there. Then you move this back outside that space. You can hold down Shift to keep it straight. Then you go to 1 second forward in time and then move it upward to go across the screen. So now you have this. Beautiful. So what I'm going to do now is to duplicate this 6 times. That is 5 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to offset all of this 1 second forward. So you see that finishes at 6 if you look at the keyframe here. You see, it finishes at 6. So what I'm going to do is to select this second to the last one, this shape layer, then expand its property, then expand the content, and I'm going to delete this rectangle too because I want that one to be bar, 1 bar, because it has to be random, you know. So I'm going to also go to the second duplicate here and do the same thing. Now, what I'm going to do next is to randomize the space. So I'm going to select all of that layer, then hit U to collapse the options. So what I'm going to do now is to move this second duplicate a little bit closer. Then I'll move this to a little bit closer. Then I will leave this like this. Let this delay a bit. This is okay. So now let's go back to the main composition, that is the intro. So, and this is what we have. You see it? So now let's shape it to look like the BBC intro. Go to your effect and preset panel to your right. Let's collapse all these other ones so that we can see it. Here, we are going to search for CC cylinder effect. So select the CC cylinder, drag and drop it into this. And we're going to have this shape right here. So now let's adjust some of these settings on effects and control panel to your left side of your screen. First, we need to adjust the light and the shading tab. So expand the light tab. Then we're going to increase this light height to about 60. Expand the shading tab and then increase this ambient to 60. Beautiful. So the next thing we're going to do now is go here. Now let's increase the radius to 150. Expand the position. And we're going to make the position X negative 310. And also we're going to make the position Y negative 310. Now on the render setting, we're going to set that to outside. So let's adjust the rotation settings. So let's expand the rotation tab. So we're going to set this to negative, that is 0 by negative 29. And we're going to come down to the X value and set that to 0 by 88. And you can automatically see how it is now on your screen. So if you preview now, this is what you have. Beautiful. So let's bring our time indicator to about 6 seconds forward in time. Now we need to set the preview time. So once your keyframe, once your time indicator is at this point, hit N on your keyboard. That is going to set the preview period. If you don't like some of this thickness, we can go back later and change it. But before that, let's add another effect to this so that we can set our color. So go back to the effect and preset panel to your right and then search for fill. Drag and drop it into the layer on your timeline. Then let's collapse this CC cylinder effect and then set our color to white. I'm going to set this to a bit gray, not too much white. So you hit OK. Now we have our colors. So, but there is something I want us to do. I will go inside and randomize these lines. If you look at it, this line, this tiny strip is here for all of them. So I'm going to move some of them down so that we'll have it randomized, because that is how it is on the original intro. So let's go back to that ribbon composition. So I'm going to pull in. So I'm going to basically leave the first one. For example, the first one, I'm okay. Then the second one, I'm going to expand the properties and remove one of the content completely. Okay, I think here we have only one rectangle. Okay, so we have only one there. We already did that before. So now let's go to this last one here. From here, this one, I'm going to move back, pull in. This tiny strip above, I'm going to bring it down. So I will expand here the content, and then this rectangle too, and then hold my shift key and move it down. I think this is okay right about here. So I'm also going to do the same thing with the last duplicate, which is this. I will select this. I will expand the property content and then select the rectangle 2 and move it below here, just right there. So another thing I'm going to do is to go back down. The first 2 lines are created. I think they are a bit thick. So these are the first 2 lines. So I will scrub to my timeline to see where it is. This is it. So I'll pull in and make it a bit tinier. Then I'll select the second line, which is this, and look for where it is also, and make it tiny. So let's go back to the first composition. Now I like how it is. Beautiful. The ribbon on the timeline, we're going to select it and duplicate it. Ctrl D to do that. So the bottom one, we're going to go to the effect and set the color of the fill to an orange color. Then the next thing we're going to do for the bottom layer, we're going to offset it a bit, somewhere here. Then hit T on your keyboard to reveal the opacity. Let's drop this to 30%. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is go back to the project manager window here. So I'm going to select this ribbon composition, Ctrl D on the keyboard to also duplicate it. Then I will hold it, make sure it's selected, and the one on the timeline here is selected. I want to replace it, then make some changes. So I would hold down the Alt key on the keyboard, drag and drop it on top of this layer. That is going to automatically replace it, retaining all the property we have adjusted. So now I will double click it to open it. So what I want to do is to delete all of this. Some of this, I will delete the first 2 layers, that thick wider layers 1, 2, and the second 2 layers, tiny layers 1, 2. You can either delete this or hide it using the eye icon here. So that has hidden it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go into all of these, expand it, and remove the content rectangle 2 for all of them, for all the layers. Now, if you go back to the main composition, which is the intro here, you will see that that yellow color beneath it is now different from what is moving on top. So now let's create some of these additional graphics, the lines. So what we are going to do now is to Ctrl N on the keyboard, or Command N if you are using Mac. Now we're going to call these lines. So we're going to retain that big composition. Then we hit OK. Now select your pen tool from the top toolbar. Make sure fill is set to none, and then set a fill color to red. We also need to select a visible color, like a visible color. So let's set the thickness so that we can see it quite a bit. Let's make it 10. We are going to reduce it later back to 1. So let's draw a straight line. Click outside the tip of the composition like this, and then hold Shift key to click the other side. That is going to create a straight line. Expand the content here. Then you see this add button. Click on it and add repeater. So once you add the repeater, we're going to expand the repeater option under the composition, under the layer property. Then we're going to make these copies 5. So now we'll scroll down and expand the repeater transform, that is transform repeater 1. Then we're going to go to the position property and adjust these Y values. That is going to expand all of these, expand it to this point. Beautiful. So we're going to also adjust the X values so that it can fill the composition properly. Good. So let's move it quite up a bit. Beautiful. So now let's go back to the main composition again. Drag this line on top of your timeline. So you can see the lines here. So we're going to search for CC sphere. Select it, drag and drop it into the layer. That is going to make this round. So now we need to increase the radius until we'll have something like this. Now we need to expand the rotation. So we're going to create a rotation for the X just slightly. We just need to rotate it slightly like this. Then we select this on the timeline. Hit P on your keyboard to reveal the position. We're going to move it to the left side of the screen. We still need to increase the scale for the CC sphere. That is the radius. We need to increase the radius for the CC sphere. So let's increase it quite a bit. Beautiful. So now let's adjust this render. We're going to set it to outside so that we can only see one line. So, but for now, our line is cutting across the composition. First of all, let's fix the thickness of the line and the color. So let's go back into the composition there. Then we're going to select our stroke layer and then change this thickness or stroke width to 1. Now let's go back to the main composition. First, we're going to select this and then search for fill color, that is fill effect. So we're going to drag that and drop it on top of this composition too, on top of this layer. Then we're going to set it to gray, a very dark gray. Then you hit OK. So perfect. Now we need to cut out this part, excess part that is exceeding this white area. So what we're going to do is to duplicate this ribbon effect, this second ribbon here, or you can duplicate the first one, whichever one you prefer. So let's select Ctrl D on the keyboard and duplicate it. So I'm going to move it, this duplicate up. I'm just going to move it up. So when I move it up here, then I'll go back to the project manager window also and duplicate this ribbon, this first ribbon, Ctrl D on the keyboard to do that. So I'm going to replace it again the same way I did before by holding down Alt, then drag and drop it on top of the layer. That is going to replace it automatically. Then I'll double click on it, go inside. So all I need here is these first two layers below the layer hierarchy here. So I'll select everything above it and hide it or delete it. So I'll go back, then set the track matte of this line layer to that layer. Now we have our line cut out. With this, now the overlapping lines on the footage has been cut to this area. So now if you look at the original intro, it did not start immediately the intro started. It came in after about 1 second. So I'm going to come here, then select the line layer, hit T on the keyboard to reveal the opacity property, set a keyframe there, then come back about this point and set the opacity values to 0. So the intro now here will not just start. So let's drop the resolution to reduce the load on the PC. So you can see that came in only after it started playing. So now let's do the moving text. There are texts that are moving across the composition, that is across the intro. That is the text that contains the names of the city. So now we're gonna go now and create a new composition. So now go to composition, new composition. Now let's set this to name of the cities. That is, we are naming this to name of cities. So now we need to go back to 1920 by 1080 resolution. So hence our lock aspect ratio is still checked. Let's just remove the down value, that is the height value, to 1080, and it will automatically adjust the top one to 1920. So now we set this to OK. Now we're gonna right click on the timeline, go to new, and then select a text. So let's type in what we want. So I'll just type in the cities around me here. I'll type in Lagos. You can use the city around you. So that is Lagos. Whatever the color is here, it doesn't really matter too. So now I'll move that up here. Then I'm gonna increase the tracking. I'm gonna increase the tracking amount a bit. So I'll duplicate this 3 times, Ctrl D on the keyboard to duplicate it. So I'll move it across the screen randomly. Now, another thing we're going to do now, we need this composition to be longer. That way we can have the text going slowly, because currently it's 10 seconds, and if we set the movement to come to the left, it is going to take it is going to go too fast. So I'll go to composition and then composition settings. Then this duration here, I'm going to highlight all and type in 15 and comma. Then click out. It is going to set the time to 15 seconds. Then hit OK. So all we need now is to make our layer fit that area. So select all of them and drag to fit the timeline duration. So now we have it. So now I'm going to set a position keyframe here with all of them still selected. Hit P on the keyboard to reveal the position properties. Then click on the bottom one to set a keyframe for all of them. If you are using 2025 version, if you click on the top layer keyframe, it is only going to set a keyframe for that one. For you to understand you want keyframe for all of them, go to the bottom hierarchy and set the keyframe for all of them. So now let's move our time indicator to about 10 seconds, about 15 seconds forward in time, and then select all of this and move it across the screen. Make sure you hold your shift key to keep it straight. Beautiful. So now we're going to set some of these to be fast. So let's come back to this point. So let's select the first one. Let's close up the keyframe so that we come fast to about 6 seconds. Yes, this is okay. Then duplicate it. Then alter it a bit so that it will be 2. Then let's select the second one. Let's alter this one too a bit. So now you can change this text to many more cities. So I'll change this now. if you scroll through your timeline, you will see the text coming across the screen. You can always adjust the timing if you like, but I'm going to leave this for the sake of this tutorial. So let's go back to the main composition. Then we're going to drag this name of cities right on top here. So if you scroll, you see that it is coming in, but we're going to fix it also because it is writing on top of this instead of it to come from inside here. So we're going to set the track matte also to that shape layer on top. That is that ribbon layer. So that is going to cut that off. So now we have it. If you reduce the opacity of the track matte, it is going to drop the opacity. So let's reduce the opacity a bit. Beautiful. And this is what we have. Now to finish this up, let's create the titles. That is the BBC Look East title. So make sure no layer is selected in your timeline. So let's keep the timeline clean first. Select one, Ctrl A, then you hit U to collapse all the options. This way the timeline is cleaner. So now let's go on the top menu bar, that is on the top toolbar right here. Click on the rectangle tool. Make sure you hold Shift and Control to keep it perfect square. Beautiful. So now let's drop the tool and then hold down Control key and move the anchor point to the center. Now let's change the color to deep gray. First of all, we're going to set the stroke to none. Then we set a gray color, that is dark gray. Feel free to put your brand title if you want to. Let's create the text. Right click on your timeline, go to new, and then create a new text layer. So we're just going to hit B on caps. Now let's move it to this point on top here to have our first B. So let's change the color to white. Let's increase the size. Make sure it's at the center of the square. So select the square shape and the text, Ctrl D on the keyboard to duplicate it. Then let's arrange the hierarchy on the timeline. Then we're going to move it to the right. Hold down Shift so that you keep it straight. Then we're going to select the shape layer still, Ctrl D on the keyboard to duplicate it one more time. Also arrange the layer hierarchy. Then we're going to pull this to the right also by holding down the Shift key. Now select the top text and change this to C so that we have BBC. So now we're going to create a controller for this. That way we can move it around or change the scale at any time. So now right click on your timeline, go to new and create a new null object. So we're going to move that to the B at the center. Hold down Control so that it will snap to the center right there. So we select all this layer beneath it on the timeline and make it a child of that null object. First, let's rename our null object. Select it, hit Enter key to rename it to BBC Title Control. Now with our title selected, we can just simply align this to center and every other thing will adjust. So you see how it is. You see that? So we can then move it to the position we like. It's somewhere here. So now let's create the other text. Go to new and create a text. Then we type in look east. We also need to change the color to deep gray. Let's move it below here and increase the font size. We're also going to change the tracking to 0 so that we can increase the font size properly. So we're going to come here, select the text tool from the toolbar on the top. We're going to highlight this back right here and change it to regular because it's tinier on the intro. So we can increase the boldness of this east if we want to, but I will leave it like this. So Ctrl D on your keyboard to duplicate the text again and write the subtitle. The subtitle on TV, on radio, online, on TV, on radio, online. So we're going to just change the font style to bold. I'm also going to change the size, the font size, and then we're going to move it below here and increase the tracking. Beautiful. So the last thing we're going to do is to duplicate this text again to create the URL. So I'll move it down and type in bbc.com. You can use your URL if you want. So you can increase the font size here too and change the tracking. Then I'm going to come toward the end here, very close to 4 seconds. Then I'll hit T on the keyboard to set a keyframe for the opacity because I want it to come in last from here. And that is it, guys. This is how you can recreate the BBC Look East intro inside Adobe After Effects. If you enjoyed the tutorial, please subscribe to the YouTube channel for more tutorials like this. I will bring you more stylish and more modern style of animation right inside Adobe After Effects. Share this video as a way of supporting my channel to anyone who might find this helpful. If you have any question, you can ask me on the comment section. And I will be right there to answer your question. If you want any other tutorial, please become a member so that I will quickly do the tutorial for you. This tutorial has been asked for the past 3 months and I was only able to do it now, though my computer crashed lately. So until I see you again on the next one, my name is SSB Otaru for MotionDigit Studios.